Welcome to the Humble Hoof podcast. My name is Alicia Harlov. This is a podcast for both horse owners and hoof care professionals, offering discussions into various philosophies on the health of the hoof and soundness of your horse. Please check us out on Facebook or at thehumblehoof.com.
Trying to choose the right supplements for the right horses often feels like a chore, and you have enough chores as it is. Fortunately, there's Equithrive, whose mission is to make this whole nutrition equation easier on you and much more beneficial to your horses. Equithrive's lineup of pelleted supplements are developed with care, backed by science, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Not to mention picky eater approved. Whether you need advanced joint care for your equine athlete, gut, or metabolic support, Equithrive is your one-stop shop for feed tub fortification. Do your horses and yourself a favor and visit equithrive.com. Use the promo code HumbleHoof and get 20% off your first order, plus free and fast shipping nationwide. Don't forget to use HumbleHoof, all one word, to get 20% off your first order at equithrive.com.
A special thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Cavallo. For our Humble Hoof listeners, they are offering 15% off their Cavallo Trek hoof boots using the coupon code HRN at checkout. The Trek is the world's most popular and versatile hoof boot and Cavallo's toughest trail boot, while also doubling as an option for therapy or rehab. The front closure system makes it easily adaptable to various hoof shapes, and TPU upper design allows for maximum strength while minimizing weight for the comfort and ease of movement for your horse. These are recommended by vets and trainers and also loved as transport boots by barrel racers, show jumpers, dressage riders, and everyone in between. Again, for 15% off a pair of Treks, use the code HRN at checkout at cavallo-inc.com. With the holiday coming up, I just wanted to do a super quick episode on a topic that's important for a lot of us who live in a cold climate this time of year, and that is cold-induced or quote-unquote winter laminitis. So we all know that, if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, that 90% of laminitis is endocrinopathic, which means that it's triggered by their metabolic state, and that's usually controlled by diet and medication as needed for their hormones. For some horses that have had a past of laminitic issues or metabolic issues, they can actually have laminitis induced by cold weather because of internal damage to their foot. This can happen when there has been no change whatsoever in their management in the winter. So they're eating the exact same diet, the exact same hay, the exact same supplements, and the same medication that they've always had. But it seems like as soon as the temperatures drop and it gets a little bit cold out, these horses can look like they're in a full-blown laminitic attack. A lot of times it might seem like nothing that you do will help, and blood work might actually seem to be fairly controlled. In these cases, a different approach is needed. So ECIR, or the Equine Cushioning and Incident Resistance Group, has a great amount of resources on winter laminitis and some really cool blog posts and pages and messages in their forum that really help owners to kind of parse through this. But from my understanding of it and what I've seen in clients of mine is that horses that have had laminitis in the past can have damage in their hoof capsule to their AVA shunts. And what that is their arteriovenous anastomosis shunts, which help to control the blood flow to help with keeping their feet from basically freezing in the winter. With a past laminitis, if these shunts have been damaged, then the vasoconstriction of the blood vessels in cold weather can be incredibly painful. So I kind of equate this to like a Raynaud's in people. And I could be wrong about that. Someone could correct me. But when I think of that painful sensation in your fingers or your extremities for people that have Raynaud's, and it's incredibly painful in the cold weather, that's what I think of with these horses that have a cold weather laminitic attack. And nothing that you do diet-wise will necessarily improve that. So I'm going to tell you how I approach these cases when I see a horse that's struggling with winter laminitis, just as a quick few minute long informational session for people that might be struggling with it. So first, almost every single horse at my rehab facility is on an herb called Jiaogulan, or J-herb. If you just want to Google J-herb, it should come up. It is a Chinese herb that acts as an adaptogen, but also a vasodilator. So that can help increase perfusion or circulation in the hoof capsule in the winter. So I have horses on that pretty much year round, and most of them also get an amino acid with it called AAKG, and that can help increase the effectiveness of the Jiaogulan. This will kind of act a little bit as a safeguard for horses that are going into cold weather. It's not foolproof, but I have seen horses markedly improve with this herb just added to their diet daily. So that's even before the cold weather hits. Once it starts getting colder, I'm paying attention to the temperature. And if it starts getting below, even below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which I think is around 4 degrees Celsius, I start to pay attention if there's any changes in comfort. And if there's a horse that I know is susceptible, I'll either tell the owners to boot them, blanket them, wrap their legs. You can put wool socks on their feet inside their boots. You can do, stable bandages or even traveling boots on top of their wraps just to keep their legs a bit warmer, to keep the circulation moving up and down their limb. Some of these horses really prefer if they're on deep bedding or shavings, just so they're not, standing on hard surfaces or cold surfaces. And they can also, by standing on deep shavings or deeper soft footing, they're able to kind of adjust the angles of their hoof as needed for their comfort, but that can also help with increasing the circulation to their hoof. Now, horses that have an endocrinopathic issue can have trouble regulating their body temperature, or just, their body doesn't manage their hormone levels and insulin levels as well as they should in cold weather. So for those horses, you really need to make sure that their diet and their blood work is really, really tuned in before the cold weather hits. So that can mean testing your hay again to make sure that it's below 4% starch and less than 10% sugar and starch combined. And if you're not able to test your hay, if you have a variable supply, then soaking it is a way to help ensure that you can get as low as you can for those numbers. Obviously, if we're talking about cold weather laminitis, soaking is not the most fun thing that you can do. I know that it can freeze a bit and it can be really difficult with soaking hay in winter. So testing hay in this time of year can help to alleviate some of that work of soaking hay. Also, once you have the hay tested, if you're able to, really honing in on the minerals that they need, balancing the calcium and phosphorus and magnesium, and also balancing the iron, copper, zinc, and manganese can help to provide the hoof with the building blocks it needs to grow the healthiest foot possible, but also the healthiest lamina connection possible for that horse. So that's going to rule out something that could be a diet-related laminitis versus a cold weather laminitis, because sometimes you can feel like you have the diet honed in, but really something's missing. I also, for these horses, will do more of an ECIR emergency diet, which you can find on their website, but that also means that I'll remove access to alfalfa and any grain or commercial balancer. And I make sure that any supplements I feed them don't have any added sugars or fillers that are going to cause an issue for these horses. And I feed them in a metabolic safe carrier like the Timothy Balance Cubes or unmolassed beet pulp. I really like Speedy Beet. You can also do something like a Timothy grass pellet or a teff pellet, something that has no added sugar, no added molasses, and ideally something that has a guaranteed analysis on the bag that says that the sugar and starch are less than 10% combined and the starch alone is less than 4%. Some of these horses, their past of laminitis came from a Cushing's or PPID diagnosis. For those horses, actually at the end of the summer, I like to suggest to owners that they have their veterinarian double check their ACTH levels before the seasonal rise in the fall. So if they need an adjustment in their medication, their veterinarian can adjust it so that they can keep their ACTH levels in that kind of low 20s range year round, so that they don't tip over the edge during the seasonal rise into laminitis. And then you're kind of chasing laminitis going into the cold weather, where we have then the added stress of that vasoconstriction in the hoof. I know this is a super broad overview, but what I would suggest is join ECIRhorse.org. That's ECIRhorse.org. They are an amazing free volunteer site. They've been in operation for about 2+ decades now. They have the most comprehensive approach to laminitis that I have found that has proven time and again to be successful. And they have a lot of resources on cold weather laminitis. So kind of a brief synopsis. Make sure you keep those previously laminated horses warm this winter when it drops to lower temperatures. Keep their legs warm, keep their feet in boots or in wool socks, and make sure that their diet is controlled, that their medication is where it needs to be, and that if needed, you can add in an adaptogen like Jauglon and the amino acid AAKG to help as much as you can to increase that circulation to the hoof. If you have any questions, ECIR is the resource to turn to. I always say that I'm slightly more hoof obsessed than the average person, and chances are, if you're listening to a hoof care podcast, you are too. So we should probably be friends. Feel free to find me on Facebook or email me at thehumblehoof@gmail.com.